A balanced diet is an important part of human growth. Good food, good life. A nutritious life is important to live a neutral life. Happy National Nutritious Week. Welcome to Living at Your Finest podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Babs. I'm a triple board certified family, obesity, and lifestyle medicine physician, and I am the founder of Living at Your Finest Wellness, a holistic direct primary care practice. Did you know that 80% of lifestyle-related chronic diseases within our communities are preventable, with poor diet being the primary culprit? Now, contrary to what we thought, that it was our unfortunate genes, the good news is that we can make changes together to improve our health and quality of life. So that's what this podcast is all about. The Living at Your Finest podcast is devoted to helping families to live at their finest well-being, using a holistic approach with a healthy lifestyle to nourish and flourish as a whole, vibrant, and healthy champion. So join me and my guests as we share transformational and sustainable skill sets from our health and wellness journey to support you and your families in achieving optimal well-being. Ready to live at your finest? Well, let's get to it. Greetings, Living at Your Finest health champions. How are you all doing today? Welcome back to another episode of Living at Your Finest podcast show. Thank you so very much for showing up today. I appreciate each and every one of you. I do not take your support for granted. I don't at all. And I'm grateful that you showed up today. And I'm so blessed and honored today that I have my husband as a guest today. So I'm going to introduce him to you, but I just want to find out how things are doing with all of you. I hope all is well. We're entering into the second quarter of the year, and this month of March is National Nutrition Month. And I thought it would be so important to share my husband's story with you. He has been so gracious to just share his story about how food is medicine, especially during this month that it matters. So he's going to share a little bit about that. He's going to emphasize just how, yes, exercise is good, but we cannot outrun a bad diet. And he's just going to really share some of the things that I've talked a lot about in the science about if your diet is wrong, medicine is of no good. But if your diet is right, medicine is of no use. So that's what we're going to tailor our conversation around for this podcast show. That's exactly what we're going to talk about. So let me just give you a little bit about Joseph Babalola, also known as Marietta Babalola. He is the CEO of Joseph Babalola and Associates. It is a law firm that is doing so well. He's a blessing to his community, and I'm truly honored that he has agreed to come on the show with me today. So I want to welcome you, Mr. Joseph Babalola. Welcome to the Living at Your Finest podcast show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on Living at Your Finest podcast show.
Awesome. So I want you to just share a little bit about what you do. People that might not know of you or your company, just share a little bit about you, and then we'll dive into just overall what nutrition as medicine means to you.
Oh, like you said, I'm the CEO of Joseph Babalola and Associates, which is a law firm based here in Marietta, Georgia, which specializes in global immigration, personal injury, and then criminal defense. And we've been around for going on a little shy of, thinking 8 years now. And we've provided a variety of services to clients.
Awesome. Thank you. And I must tell you, and I'm not being biased here, he is an excellent lawyer. His clients love him. I mean, I enjoy seeing his posts when he's just celebrating each and every one of them. He's so passionate. Just as a great husband he is, he's also a great father and a great lawyer. So let's dive into nutrition as medicine. Before we dive into your particular story, what is your interpretation of nutrition as medicine?
Well, one, we were made in the likeness of God, and we were made in his image, which means that there is a manufacturer that is actually responsible for our being, and the manufacturer designed us a certain way. And in that design, one of the important components is nutrition, which means what you actually feed your body. Just like if you have a vehicle, right, your vehicle really can't last that long without things like engine oil or gasoline. But it has to be the right kind of engine oil and it has to be the right kind of gasoline, or else your car is not going to last or even move. The same way, we humans, we need fuel, and the fuel we need is food. But at issue is what kind of food you're actually feeding your body. Most people don't know, but the food that you actually feed your body has a tremendous amount of effect on your overall well-being, which could lead to sickness and disease, but at the same time, it could lead to healthy living. So it's a choice paradigm.
All right, very good. Thanks for sharing that. And I love how you correlated it to the vehicle, right? So what we put in the vehicle, just the human body, which is the temple, right? Whatever we feed it is how we act. If you give the vehicle the wrong kind of oil, it's either going to work or it's not going to work, right? Same thing with the human body. So I'm sure people are wondering, so what is it, Dr. Babs? Why are you calling a lawyer to talk about medicine? Is because we are all, regardless of our field, regardless of our profession, we're all first and foremost human beings, right? And we all have this temple that we need to feed. And so can you share a little bit about your story? You are doing this out of the kindness of your heart to just share with people to see the power of food. So can you share, why am I asking the lawyer to talk about nutrition? What happened to you that changed your whole view? I have said it time and time on my show that I am a sweet tooth. I grew up being a sweet tooth. And what do I know? I married someone else that is a sweet tooth. So two sweet tooths in the home, we would eat our nice, sweet stuff, our dessert, would have all those things. And as we aged, our body just wasn't breaking it as well as it used to. And you alluded to some chronic diseases. So can I kind of give a picture to how you came to that conclusion? Because you were a sweet tooth, right? And some things happened. So can you elaborate on what changed that paradigm shift for you?
Well, everything is a matter of habits. And some of the habits that we have is actually habits we grew up with. And sometimes it's not so much that our environment when we're growing up wanted to really do that. It's just a lack of knowledge, lack of information that actually causes them to give you access to all kinds of food without any kind of warning. Like most foods now come with a warning or a label, that will at least tell you what's in it. Then, growing up, I grew up in Nigeria, originally in a place called Ibadan. I'm the very last of seven children, and my parents were professionals. My dad was an attorney, and my mom was an academic person. She was the principal school of midwifery at the University College Hospital at the UCH in Ibadan. So they were professionals, and they left us, I mean, at least me and my brothers, with nannies for the better part of the day. And the nannies just fed us any and everything that was available at the time. Growing up with that as a background and not knowing any better, right? Those habits kind of carried over till your teenage years and also to when you're an adult. So what happened? I started eating everything that was sweet, from chocolates to soda drinks. One of the soda drinks that I liked was orange soda, and also Mountain Dew, anything that had lots of sugar in it. Unbeknownst to me, these things are just filled with sugar, tons of sugar. And then I ate lots of starch, right? Lots of bread, lots of rice, lots of things like that. And like bread and rice and other starchy things, it breaks into glucose, and too much of anything is bad. I kind of loaded myself with lots of sugar over a long period of time. And there's just so much that your body can actually break down into useful sugar before it starts doing the damage to your body. I found myself in a place where, I was overweight. At the same time, my body wasn't really working optimally, anymore because my body was just filled with sugar. So I found myself, at least at the height of it, I started going to the bathroom a lot. And at that time, I didn't even know what was going on. I didn't know why I was going to the bathroom so much. Then I had a thirst for water. I was always drinking water and I was always thirsty. So I drink water and within 5 minutes, I'm thirsty again. So I have to drink more water. But I think it was just a way of my body saying you need to flush out the sugar that is in there and stuff. And then, like excess sugar in the body not only affects you or is symptomatic of you going to the bathroom, but at the same time, it could also affect other parts of your body as well. So if you're not careful, I'm sure that Dr. Babs will probably elaborate on that. And then after a while, I went for my physical. I did some blood work. Thanks to Dr. Babs, she kind of noticed that a few things were off, so she invited me very graciously to her practice, living at your finest wellness. And if you haven't been there, you're missing. Need to go there and check yourself holistically to make sure that your body is actually working optimally. And she performed blood tests for me, and when the numbers came, the numbers were very alarming. My A1C was high. My blood sugar was high. So many indicators were really, and I was way off. And it was a wake-up call for me because I never knew. It is not so much that Dr. Babs wasn't telling me. She was. I wasn't listening as such.
Feeling the
You know,
symptoms at the
yeah,
time.
I wasn't listening, so, and until I got hit with like a ton of bricks. And then that's when I totally just stopped and I really had to really take a radical change. And that's when I listened to what she had to say and through her help and through her guidance, and I was able to turn things around.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing this, because this will really resonate with a lot of us, because as you said, we are all good people. It's just our environment. And it wasn't that our environment did it to spite us or hurt us. It was really to help us. And we see that even now in the generation, kids are rewarded with sugar, schools, all the things. So I really do thank you for just being vulnerable and sharing. And I also want to say publicly that I admire you so much, because I tell my kids, I'm like, I don't know if I would have made that drastic change the way you did, but you just cut off everything. So to give some perspective for our listeners, so A1C was 12. And generally the men in our lives, they're strong, they hold us, they take care of the home. But we all know generally men don't go to the doctors. And if they go, it's their wives. I remember anytime I saw a man come to my practice, it was because the wife was on the speakerphone saying, make sure you ask this question. So I always smile and chuckle anytime I see men in my practice, because it's not the usual thing. And so with my husband, I didn't know what was going on, but I was like, you strange. You don't go to the bathroom that often. What is going on with you? And I just thank God the day I arrested him, I said, no, I'm taking you you're following me to the practice. His A1C was 12. And given that, my husband has had prediabetes in the past, he does have a family history, but he's reversed it before. But then this time around, he thought, okay, yeah, I exercise. I'm just going to exercise, but was still eating the usual way. But when these symptoms, blood vessel was affected, whenever there's so much blood in the sugar in the blood, it thickens that blood. And as you can imagine, causing damage, if not to the eyes, anywhere there's blood and there's sugar, there is damage to that area. So you heard Mr. Joseph talk about going to the bathroom, peeing a lot. I mean, to the extent, right? You were at the plane and you couldn't get to the bathroom quick enough, right? That was just how bad it was and severe. But the moment he got the news and he had all these things happening to him that was like, whoa, what's going on? He made those changes. And this time, not just focusing on the physical activity, it was really the root cause. And that's why we always talk about the root cause. He paid attention to what he was eating, right? You cut back. And as a matter of fact, you were even to the extreme that our kids go, they always ask us, what did you do to daddy? Because daddy you remember you like to eat out a lot. And I tell you have shares in some of these restaurants. But they asked me, what did you do to our father? He's not eating out as much. But you said something, if you can repeat it. What did you say about how you look at food now? Can you share that? What did you say about food and how do you see food now?
Well, the thing about food that I kind of made up my mind about is that as long as the food is not natural,
Natural.
not food, and as long as it's not natural, it's not good for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not meant to be consumed. which means that someone in a factory somewhere actually manufactured that food. So what I did was, before I eat anything, I always ask myself one simple question. Is it food? Is it something that was actually grown somewhere?
Right.
Now, that's not the only question I ask. Even if it was grown somewhere, how was it grown? Well, there are things that was actually added into it. So I read labels now. I read labels, I check the labels, I see what's actually in the food that I'm about to consume. And that actually helps me to kind of regulate myself a lot. So, and then it also helps me with the quantity as well. You know, I ask myself, okay, if it's not food, then even if I want to eat this, I really don't want to eat a lot of it. I just want to eat very, very little of it. So I became a food skeptic, which means I don't look at food naturally for pleasure anymore. I look at food almost as fuel, something I need to go about my day. And if it's not good fuel, just like the analogy I gave earlier, then I don't want it in my body. I really don't.
Yeah.
It could go somewhere else. So,
Thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode. My goal on this podcast is to empower, educate, and encourage you to take actionable steps to triumph at living at your finest, body, mind, and spirit. Of note, the information provided here is for educational purposes only and does not substitute as medical advice. Please discuss your healthcare needs with your licensed medical professional. If you are in need of a compassionate and comprehensive holistic physician or know someone who is, please reach out through my website, livewellness.com, for a meet and greet. It will be my honor to talk to you. Are we connected on social media yet? I share more in-depth content on best practices to ensure that you live at your finest daily. So please join me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube at Living at Your Finest Wellness, where we can learn together and stay connected. Lastly, please subscribe to iTunes if you have not done so already, and share the podcast within your circle of influence. An extra step? Leave a review and let me know what topics or discussions you would like to hear more of. Thanks in advance. It is always a thing of joy to hear from you. Now, let's get back to today's episode. Very good. Well, I love what you said. And it's important that our listeners understand that just doing that over a 3-month period, your A1C went from 12 with all those symptoms of damage to vessels, you name it, peeing a lot, drinking a lot, disorientation, all of that. It went to 9. And your most recent A1C, can you say it? What was it?
it was 5.8.
5.8. That's the power of food as medicine. 5.8. So Mr. Joseph is still eating. He's still exercising, but not as aggressive as he was then, but he's paying attention to what he's putting in his mouth. So it's as whole as possible and minimally processed, because unfortunately, the more processed foods are, it's more sugar, more unhealthy oils, and all the things, salt. So those 3 things, high salt, high sugar, and cholesterol, just really causes a lot of insulin resistance, right? Causes a lot of inflammation, and it causes a lot of gut microbiome. So it's gut dysfunction. So those 3 things is what drives diabetes. And so with good news, yes, he did take some medication. He took all that he needed to reverse, but he got to the root cause. So he didn't just rely on medicine, right? It was as far as you even having to take insulin, right? But now you're not on that any longer. You took it diligently, but you got to the root cause. And now he's at the 5.8. This is somebody coming all the way from 12, and all those complications that he had that we talked about, some of them reversed. So the power of food as medicine. And so I really, again, want to just openly applaud you for doing that. And you said something about the leadership of the home. What can you share a little bit about your children now? And what are they doing? Just seeing you with the way you eat, has that changed the way they see food too? Can you speak a little to that?
Well, like I said earlier, we're creatures of habits. And if we as parents, if we eat or if we've always eaten a certain way, then our kids are bound to follow our examples. And since I was a sweet tooth and my wife was a sweet tooth as well, so we have children that are all sweet tooths. And so they grew up also the same habits, although very controlled because, we grew up knowing too much of anything is bad, but they were still eating some of these things. Although we don't shop just anywhere, we pick where we shop, and we've done that for almost a decade now, longer. So we shop in places like Trader Joe's, that is very diligent with manufacturers that they partner with and stuff. But at the same time, they go to school, and when they're in school, you really don't have control over what you can feed them. So in school, they buy all these unhealthy things, they eat all these unhealthy things. But after they kind of saw all the changes that I made, especially my relationship with food, they started noticing. They always say that, don't tell me what you do, show me how to act. So it wasn't so much what I said, it was just the way I acted around food, the things I stopped eating, the things I did eat, the way I explained, what was on the table and what I was willing to eat or not, and slowly, the children started noticing, they noticed the various changes that I made, and they also started making some of these changes. So I have my two daughters now, they're modulating what they eat, how they eat. They ask themselves, is it food? If it's not food, then they really don't want to touch too much of it. They're staying away from desserts as much as they can. I have my son, who is also a sweet tooth as well, but he too is slowly coming around. You really don't want to be too hard on the children, but you just want to educate them in such a way that they actually make good decisions, especially when it comes to food, because you're not always going to be there. So when they saw the changes that I was making, right, around food, things I was cutting off, and they didn't see me eating starch or such anymore, I was cutting that out. And they saw me eating lots of proteins. Desserts was completely off the menu for me. Sugary drinks completely off the menu. And the only thing I take mostly is I take coffee that is black, and then I take water, drink lots of water. And over time, they noticed it so much that, they were going around with me saying, you're not eating. While I was telling them that I do eat. It's just that I just changed what I eat. I not only change what I eat, but I change how I eat, and then how frequently I eat as well. And I challenge everyone listening, right, to set the right leadership example, in the home, because your leadership matters, especially when it comes to food. Your children are watching, and they're going to follow your example. They will follow that example. So that's my little.
Awesome. Thank you. And when you do that, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? So it takes time. So we give each other grace as a family. The whole idea, especially in the Black community, we know there's chronic lifestyle related diseases in the community altogether, right? But more so, which communities are affected the most. So we need to be very mindful. Generational health. We talk about generational wealth, but we're talking about generational health in our homes. What are we cultivating? What are we preaching? What is the message around food? Now, again, some people, my husband was excellent. He just switched the flip and he did it. Some people might take a minute. So give yourself grace. But the important thing is not just what you take out, but what you add, right? So you have to substitute it. So your fruits, your veggies, you have to make sure you have your whole grains. My husband makes fantastic beans. I mean, delicious beans. And so legumes, beans, whole grains, right? So when you heard him talk about starch, he was talking more about the processed starch. So anything that is white, that he's taken things out of it and added to it. So things like whole grains, like the quinoa, the brown rice, the brown bread. So being very mindful of those things, of what you're putting in your diets. And of course, the seeds and the nuts. He mentioned about the portion, how much you're eating and how often you're eating. So there's different aspects of it that you definitely need to have somebody that is well versed in this to walk alongside you, because not everybody can figure it out on their own. So if you need that help, I am certainly here to help you with that. But I, again, just want to thank Mr. Joseph. We're going to just ask him one or two questions because we know about nutrition as medicine for him. But I want to pick your brain. What does living at your finest mean to you? Can you tell me in maybe a sentence? What does that mean? How do you live at your finest well-being?
Well, living at your finest actually means you're gifting yourself the essence of life,
Nice.
which means that you're coming to a realization that you actually have value. And anything you have value for, you really want to take care of. So if I'm living at my finest, as much as I possibly can, I want to live a life that is as close as possible to the manufacturer's manual,
Very good.
the way that it was ordained
Mm,
that we actually live our lives, which is, we eat lots of greens and we eat less processed food, that we feed our spirits with things that would edify us, right? That we feed our minds with very intellectual thoughts, that we avoid negativity, and that we strive for excellence in an environment that enables us to bring out the very best in ourselves. And that is why when you go to Living at Your Finest Wellness with Dr. Babs, what you're going to get is an environment that takes care of your body, your soul, your spirit, and your well-being. So it's beyond medicine, it's beyond pills. I can assure you that if you do, just like I did, you're going to be in very, very good hands.
Thank you for your votes of confidence. I appreciate it. Thank you. So one last question for you, and I would love to give you an opportunity to share more about what's in the horizon for you with your practice and how, if anyone wants to get in a hold of you, how can they reach you? So I'd like for you to share that. But before we wrap up, I have a question for you. What is one thing that general people don't know about you? And that could include me. So we're putting you on the spot. What is one thing that people don't know about you?
Well, it's just a
Gonna let
fun
you cat's
fact.
out of the bag here. Let's see.
Yeah, the one thing that most people actually don't know about me is that I play soccer.
Oh, okay. I don't think I knew that. You played
I
soccer.
played soccer. Yeah, I played soccer growing up. I attended staff school, University of Ibadan, and then I attended Federal Government College, Ogbomoso. Then I attended the Obafemi Awolowo University, where I went to law school, initially in Nigeria, before I attended Georgia State University, College of Here, and I went to law school again. So I've been to law school twice. So that's another thing most people don't know as well. So it's a lot of school. To love school. Those are two things that maybe most people really
I guess that's why you're a great professional. You're great at what you do. Well, once again, thank you, Mr. Joseph. I really appreciate you taking the time to just share your story. Any last parting words? And, maybe share how people can get in touch with you, the website, law firm, email. We'd love to hear some parting words from you.
Well, the thing I would like to share, if you forget everything that I've said today, one thing I want you to remember is that you matter. Life matters.
Mm,
Your body matters. Everything you do, both for you and your family, it matters. And everything has incremental effects. So, which means that sometimes when you look at the goal ahead of you, which might be maybe a weight loss goal or any of those goals, sometimes it might seem insurmountable. But you don't have to worry about the goal. Just take the first step, and it's one step ahead of another. And then before you know it, you would have made a significant dent in the overall goal. So that's one thing I like to leave with people is that it's never too late to turn towards good health. No matter where you are, you can turn around and make a change for the better. That is one. And then parting words about my practice. My practice specializes in global immigration and personal injury. We've had quite a lot of tremendous growth over the past couple of years, and we're very grateful for the opportunity to provide exceptional service to our clients. We look for different ways to serve, and we look for tremendous growth as well in the future. So one thing I always tell my clients is that it's not about others, it's about them. So as long as I can focus my energy on the client in front of me, that's really what matters. So always remember that you matter and that the best investment that you can make is investment in you. So take the time to make the investment. investment today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I couldn't have said that better. You've dropped so many nuggets and so many meaningful words. You talked about you matter. You talked about the community, the people in front of you and taking those baby steps. I mean, when you started your health journey, you've lost a total of over 40 pounds, but it didn't happen one day. You just gradually you did everything day by day, and then it accumulated. And that goes to show, when they say just losing 5% of your body weight, just 5%, you begin to see the changes in your health markers, not just how you feel overall, right? The non-weight, the non-skill victories. You also see the skill victories, as time goes on. So it's little baby steps day by day, but understanding that the body, once it's kept in that right environment, it will just nourish and it will blossom into what it is that we need it to. So thank you very much. I will definitely put your website and how people can get in touch and stay in touch with you, because you are definitely an inspirational person. Sadly, I know what I'm saying. You're an
Thank you.
person. And we also want to just thank our community too that have been there. We know his PCP. A shout out to him if he's listening. You have also been an amazing doctor that just worked alongside of us to get us to where we needed to be. So we are grateful for our community. So thank you again, Mr. Joseph, for taking time out with us.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
And so to our community, thank you for hanging out with us to the very end. I really hope and pray that what we've shared today, especially coming from Mr. Joseph, his journey of just assurance that we can heal. It's never too late, you're never far gone. It's just one day at a time. That as you've listened with your heart, you determine which one thing do you want to focus on today. Do you just want to add one more serving of fruits or veggie? Maybe drink more water, cut back on the soda, maybe pay attention to what you're eating, maybe bring your kids together and eat together, have conversations together. I remember the first time I saw Mr. Joseph reading the food label, I was shocked. I could not believe it, because I've spoken about being a food laborer, and he actually was doing that. And then when he was eating sweet the other day, he said, I don't even want this anymore. It doesn't taste the same anymore. So I promise you, these things are doable, but we need each other to be healthier. So I just want to encourage you all that you deserve to live at your finest, because you are worth it. We are all worth it, and we need to create generational health. So until next time, when we see you on the Living at Your Finest podcast, I want you to stay strong and keep hope alive. All right. Take care. God bless.